We were going to talk about men and fathers through the eyes of Lucas Black, who was an actor in Hollywood.
Yes.
He was in NCIS New Orleans. He was in Tokyo Drift, the Fast and Furious movie, which Hannah Claire will have to report on eventually. And also, fun fact, he was the kid that falls into the sinkhole at the beginning of the very first X-Files movie, X-Files Fight the Future, in 1998. He was very young at that time. So it says
he landed his first role at 11.
Yeah, so he was very, I don't know if that was his first role, but it would have been around that time.
Yeah.
So it says Lucas Black says there's an attack on men in our culture. And basically it says Fast and the Furious alum gives dads their due in Pure Flix original legacy peak. Now you look this up.
Pure Flix has a description on YouTube that says they're a worldwide leader in selecting and streaming faith and family-friendly media that changes lives, inspires hearts, and lifts the spirits of members like you and those you love. So they're a Christian company, and they want to promote and produce Christian themes in their films.
This is really interesting. I was watching, I just happened to be watching an old episode of the show Castle last night. And in the show, there's like, they have their own version of like a Girls Gone Wild producer. He's in multiple episodes. And in one of them, he's kind of taking on this, he's going against this guy who runs like a conservative media company. And neither of them is really portrayed as like the good guy or the bad guy, because the one guy's kind of sleazy, but he doesn't end up being the one who commits the crime at the end. And the other guy's very clearly seen as like domineering and a bit of a moralist, but in general, like loves his daughter, who like apparently like got involved with this guy and didn't know who he was. And it was very interesting the way they worked the things in together. And I thought it was very funny because nowadays I would almost guarantee you that somehow the Girls Gone Wild guy would be the good guy. And the guy who's just like the guy started like his own like media company because he believed in like family entertainment and religion. He would be the bad guy now. Like they wouldn't be able to paint it as a very like even keel thing.
If anything, they would both be bad guys, but the one with the conservative media company would be framed as worse, but behind closed doors.
Because he's hypocritical.
Yeah.
Yep. And oddly enough, in that episode, if I remember correctly, it's not that, but it is that like the girl like has a dad who is like that, but she's like not distant from him, but they clearly don't agree on stuff. It was weirdly nuanced for such a topic that I feel like wouldn't be given the nuance now.
No, it wouldn't.
But he says, when I was a child, I was still disciplined. I was told no on some of the things I wanted. I was raised right, says Black, who went on to star in the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, as well as 2 NCIS shows. Now Black is making movies that could help other fathers make similar choices. He walked away from that show, like from NCIS New Orleans, mid like 6th or 7th season. So he clearly
that must be mind numbing.
Like to do the same thing,
to do network television,
over and
play
over,
the same character all the time
for like 6 seasons. And those like that's not like these 8-episode miniseries. Those are 22 to 24 episodes a year. And he was called number 2, so he was like second top billing, which means he's in it a lot.
Oh yeah, he's probably called it probably 6
a.m. every day, and like
till
as
5
you would know,
6.
they're working. I remember Stephen Amell would say that it was like 18 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Man, he's banking because after 12 you start to get double time. They call it golden hour, golden time.
Oh.
You get time and a half after 8 hours, and then after 12 hours you get double time.
So like if maybe he's not, because in that show Scott Bakula was the lead, so he might be getting the most of that. But if they're working 12 to 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, he's got money. So he can afford.
I think that would easily lead to burnout, and it would lead him to be disillusioned with the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that his platform, him producing a film with this parallel economy media company,
which is where we're going, which is where we're heading now. And what I really do believe is that we've got about 15 to 20 years of like. It's Pure Flix and Daily Wire movie. Like it's
conservative media is ghettoized, and it's going to stay ghettoized.
It's going to take time
until basically the money is there for it.
And what do you mean ghettoized?
Well, they don't have the same resources that mainstream entertainment has, and they also don't have the same scope of like perspective of what can be mainstream.
Or even think of it this way, the actors that are going to be involved in it are going to be of 2 tiers. So you're going to have the Lucas Blacks or the Mel Gibsons,
the defectors,
who have made their money and can afford to be part of these projects. The other actors are going to be no names who are so hungry that they will take any role that they can get.
Yeah, are they union? Or is like Daily Wire doing union?
I don't know if Daily Wire is doing union, but I'm sure that this was still a union project. But the point is, they're filling a need, right? And right now, that need is growing. But I think that they're going in the wrong direction, making it more like I think it should be less about faith based and more about traditional entertainment. If we could pull the Overton window back to where entertainment was in the 90s, right?
So we can't show Legacy Peaks trailer.
We cannot show the trailer
for copyright reasons, but we watched it and it was cheesy. Like, it feels preachy. It showed multiple scenes in the movie where this stepdad to be is in prayer alone, in prayer with his girlfriend's children. I believe his girlfriend is supposed to be like a widow.
And what I said to Mary, I said they need to hire Mary as a Gen Z member that is also
someone
very religious, who's cynical, to kind of balance it out, right? So you can have somebody who's religious and you can have the tenets of faith in the movie, but it can't be the entirety of the project, because it's going to push even somebody like me who is desperate for like seeing a movie where men aren't treated like absolute garbage.
I think Star Wars, the originals, was a great example of spirituality without you don't need to shove religion. It doesn't have to be about a church, but like God's energy is the force, essentially.
I'm not even saying you can't have religion. I'm saying it has to be done deftly and it has to be sprinkled in on top of a good story. It can't be the all-encompassing nature of the story with a little bit of regular entertainment thrown on top. It needs to be an extra part of it. It can't be the majority.
What I made sure to remember from what you said before the show started is it seems like PureFlix and these parallel economy, Christian conservative type media companies, they are using religion as a vehicle for stories to deliver their messaging, rather than writing quality human stories with religious themes that can resonate with a mainstream audience. So they don't have the same resources and investment as mainstream entertainment because it's niche. It requires big names in Hollywood to defect and personally invest huge amounts of money into films like this, like Father Stu.
Daily Wire is going there, but even them, like, I caution them against getting involved in any type of religious themed movie unless it's done very, very, very well right now.
Yeah, like Terror on the Prairie, there was a lot of hype for that movie. I haven't seen it myself, but some people said that it just wasn't up to par with the quality of mainstream films right now.
And
I don't know if that's true or not, but that you need to take extra precautions against that when you don't have the same resources and you don't have the same funding and platforming that other films have.
And what we need right now is people to move whole hog into these realms, right? Like when Eric DeJuly started making his comic, his main point was like, you need to stop looking at these major companies as the arbiters of what is or isn't cool. You have to stop looking for them for validation. They need to stop looking at Hollywood as the bar and start making their own things. And inherently, you become cooler when you stop caring what the other person is doing.
Yeah.
It will show through in the work. Right now, it feels like a lot of it is reactionary. Look at us, we're not Hollywood. Instead, it's got to just be, look at us, we're cool. And then people will realize that this isn't Hollywood.
Like the coolest Christian would be like, Satan's a badass. And like, there's no freak out because you're cool. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. Get over it. It's all a joke anyway. Everything. It's all fake. You know, we're lucky to be alive and we still have to kill and eat. Like, wake up. Like, that's how you make cool movies. It's okay to say stuff you don't believe in. It's okay to make fun of stuff, even the things you believe the most. It's okay.
Well, people have to be open to like taking criticism, making jokes, and stuff like that, and that's hard.
Showing things realistically, and not in an idealized, corny cornball tone. And like that's what Legacy Peak might be. Like, based on the trailer, that's the
Yeah.
vibe I got from it. And
But you
it's not
could-
something that could be mainstreamed.
Yeah, but you could do this without the religious elements and just make it a story that's positive to the concept of fathers, fatherhood, and raising children as a man.
Yeah, and,
that's
like,
not inherently religious. That's just something.
Countercultural themes, like just having a movie that is countercultural right now is not enough for that movie to actually be good.
Exactly,
And
that's
for
what-
it to resonate with people and have a lasting effect on the cultural zeitgeist.
So I'm going to read his quote here, his other quote here. So he says, "I've come to realize that there's an attack on the nuclear family, an attack on men in our culture," says Black, who landed his first film role at 11 and filters down from entertainment. Black's character struggles with his own family ties, which makes the film's themes even more vital as he sees it. And if Hollywood won't create movies with these themes, others will. Pureflix produced Legacy Peak, part of the Christian Platform's original film lineup. "We need to have a strategy and plan to combat the negative messages about fathers and men," he said. "If that means going around the traditional Hollywood gatekeepers, so be it." That is not easy. That has to be done very, very carefully and with a lot of...
It's awkward.
Exactly. Like,
It's awkward
it can't
because
feel
this, like
messaging.
This sentiment of being antagonistic towards masculinity and towards fatherhood is something... It's like the cultural water we all drink. Even if you are ideologically opposed to that, it's going to be awkward to make entertainment that counteracts that sentiment. It's gonna be awkward unless you take
It can't be the only
every
focus.
precaution to avoid making it the sole focus of
Exactly.
the story.
Yep.
So, like when I see A Father Stew, that had the right funding and it had the right soul to it, and it showed things that aren't okay to show usually in the Hallmark styled Christian movies.
Think
like
Candace Cameron Bure. And
which has its place, like wholesome,
Hallmark,
cheesy
yeah.
Hallmark type movies. They have their place,
and
but
even
like,
they're kind of outcasts to
Yes.
that. There was an article
Yeah.
today that said like it only took till 2022 for Hallmark to make its first LGBTQIA movie. You're always the outsider in Hollywood unless you're right on message. So
and on time,
And on time.
perfectly in lockstep
Yep.
with the rest of the
you can't
industry.
win. You can't win.
Right.
The more movies about like psychedelic consciousness have to start getting made, because God energy is like, if you look at telescopes and at the universe, you see like the shape of neural pathways. Like the consciousness is obviously fractally
Even
happening.
something that obscure might be good just because it's so not part of the general discussion we're having. So make it more far out.
Like sci-fi.
Yeah.
If you want to make good religious content, make it sci-fi.
Yeah.
Do you think anything recently has accomplished that?
They
that you've
tried to
seen?
do that with...
Star Trek Next Generation was alright. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I'm trying to think of like they tried to have like visual themes like that in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh,
But
it was so off the mark.
Yeah, it was so corporate.
It
in how
felt
was
so
done.
disjointed. Like it just doesn't feel human.
Yeah. I haven't watched any movies that have been like that lately, but I've had some fairly good. Like I said, I watched a movie called All the Old Knives the other day, which is a spy thriller, which was very, very timeless in the way it was produced. Felt like it could have been made 10 years ago, could have been made 15 years ago. It was just a really good story with very little in the way of modern Hollywood in its messaging.
Sci-fi has just been so corrupted in like, I don't know if it can be recovered
No, it
that
can't.
easily. Like it's especially targeted with messaging. Like Star Wars has been like molested with social messaging.
What I've pointed out, I said that
It's awful.
if you want to watch things without messaging in it, look for the genres that Hollywood doesn't think are culturally important. So
Right.
spy thrillers, military dramas are for the most part left alone because Hollywood does not feel that they're reaching the
I
next
think period
generation.
pieces
And
too.
even period pieces, I think, get because of revisionist history.
Yeah.
So a lot of these ones where the genre is parsed out and has its audience already, and Hollywood doesn't want that audience, meaning like they don't care if they get the middle America dad watching trying to figure out Amazon Prime on his like Roku that his kid set up. Like they don't care about that audience. They want the kids like sci-fi, the kids like superheroes. Those are the ones that are going to get chocked full of messaging, chocked full of Hollywood's idea of what the world should be. So if you're looking for for something that's outside of that realm, you have to go away from the genres that we loved.
Except
up,
there are,
unfortunately.
like, I think of A Quiet Place. That's sci-fi, or at least sci-fi adjacent. It is an
Sci-fi
alien-esque. That is essentially an alien invasion of Earth.
Yeah.
Like, that is the foundation for the plot. And it portrays fatherhood in an extremely positive light and shows a masculine man sacrificing himself for his family. Like, I loved that movie, and that was an incredibly popular movie for mainstream audiences, not just the ghetto of conservative entertainment that I think Pureflix is courting.
And there's other like there's movies that are so far off. Like I watched Sicario again the other night. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and that came out in 2015 and spoke of the horrors of the war on drugs and cartels and stuff like that. And stuff like that is almost unapologetic in its portrayal of all people being kind of. Everyone comes out looking worse in a movie like that in a lot of ways. Emily Blunt's character kind of goes into the movie naive and leaves jaded and cynical to the world around her. And everybody else is portrayed in a negative way. But that's not really, like you said, that's got nothing to do with men or masculinity. It's got more to do with government and masculinity and kind of how men run the military-industrial complex in the drug war. But you have to get away from sci-fi if you want to find these things right now. And oddly enough, if they want to get into this realm, they're going to have to find a way to do sci-fi and counter that narrative.
Eventually, yes.
That, like, what did Daily Wire? They did the Hyperions, which was a superhero movie, I believe that they produced, or at least they licensed. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to do their own stuff in that realm, and they're going to have to get very creative because, as you know, with sci-fi or with superheroes, those live and die on IP that have existed for 75 years.
Yeah, and we are on the precipice. I mean, there's so much new technology. If you start reading like technology blogs, the way that they're producing matter out of the vacuum by like the Casimir, they're compressing the vacuum and creating like, dude, there's so much potential. You need more religion. You need more God, less religion in sci-fi, and it's going to be hot.
Well, I mean, not even just in sci-fi, but just in general, I would like to see movies find a way back to where they were in the 90s, but I just don't know if that's actually possible to do.
I don't know. It's a different market. It's possible. Of course, it's possible. But like, in what way? What would you want to see?
Okay, how about this? I want to see. It's impossible, but I would like to see them release movies and I want the actors to not give interviews about so they can't say something stupid. That
ruins so many movies.
Yes,
and they also make the press about films these days concern the actors' feelings about filming it.
Yeah.
Their feelings about their characters, their feelings about how it all looked, and their feelings about their career trajectory.
And then the actor waxes poetic.
How do you talk about the movie then?
Yeah.
That's a good
never
point.
Get to the point.
The reality TV show aspect of the behind the scenes stuff is kind of tearing the magic of the film apart.
And most of the time, my annoyance with these things is less to do with the movie, and it's almost always to do with the actor saying something stupid. That's usually a loaded question from an interviewer that's just looking for a soundbite.
It's two-sided, yeah.
Like, you lose on every level. Like, I think they think they're helping their movies by doing these press junkets, and they're doing nothing but hurting things for themselves.
That's kind of the mystique of the rock stars, that after the show, they disappear.
Where do they go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, social media in general hurts that aspect of Hollywood because they're part of the machine. They don't need social media to be big. Your average YouTuber could use social media to bolster their platform. But do I really need to know what John Krasinski does in his free time? No, I do not. I don't want to know what John Krasinski does in his free time. I just want to watch his movies and like the movies.
I like seeing behind the scenes footage of them on set, like goofing around, like they did a lot of Lord of the Rings behind the scenes with Viggo Mortensen, just tearing it up back there. What a beautiful human he is.
I do love horror movie behind the, like I loved all the horror movie behind the scenes back because it's so different from the actual tone of the movie that it's funny to watch them. Like there was like somebody did like a supercut at one point of like in the Scream franchise, like when he's like chasing after people and it's like him tripping on the costume because the way that the robes hang down, so he'd be falling. Like I like stuff like that because it's so different from the actual movie.
Mm-hmm. It lets you know ahead of time what it's going to be like when you start making movies.
Yep. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.